2, 1.
Yeah.
I had to think then. I'd just introduced, but I think that's from being a bit punchy, to be fair.
Yeah, well, that's why we got Garry on here. We're going to sort that punchy stuff out. Garry, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Episode 30.
Episode 30.
We got to clap it in.
Oh, man.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for coming along.
That's great.
Garry, I know you because a couple of years ago I was feeling unwell and I had a few issues. And I heard some geezer on the radio and I thought it was you. My wife and I were just discussing this. And he was talking all this stuff about gut health and mental health and inflammation in the body all around. And I was hunting down this naturopath, and I knew nothing about naturopaths. And it turns out I found you. It wasn't you on the radio that time, I don't think.
No.
But it was someone talking. I thought it was. I went and saw you, and I'm glad I did. Because it was a different experience for anyone that's gone to a GP, and most people have. Going to a naturopath. I suppose, should we maybe start, what is a naturopath?
So technically, a naturopath is someone that looks at gut health, looks at health and works with the way the body heals. And it's using the traditional methods, and sometimes modern medicine refers to them as traditional, and I go, well, we've been around for 100,000 years, so we've learnt to use the plants that are on the face of the earth that we can use as medicine, because we use some of the plants as food, and we use some of the plants for building material. And some of the plants we can use as medicine, and some people go, "Oh no, that's crap." And you kind of go, "But what?" Go to any primitive tribe, and they've got a list of plants in the area that they use for different medicinal purposes. So, working with the body, learning out what plants do what, and what minerals and what vitamins and what your body needs. So, if you can give it what it needs and keep it healthier, then it functions better. And the end of that is we refer to as health. So you want to be healthy. And I've copped a bit of slack from, just mates and stuff like that. Like, oh, are you into that health stuff? I go, yeah, it's weird. I don't know why. Because, I sleep better and I have more energy and I wake up feeling good and my brain works better. I remember stuff easier and I ache less and I can train more often and I can achieve things. Yeah, gee, why isn't anyone interested in this stuff? Like, really, so the healthier you are, the better your system works and the better a machine you can be if you want to apply that in the physical realms. And you talk to some really big personal trainers, or like Charles Poliquin was huge as a strength trainer. His knowledge on nutrition and training and eating was just unbelievable, a walking encyclopedia of information. So it's really interesting to see people from the field of exercise and actually bring that in. But the naturopathic field is still looking at how you work with the human body to heal. And instead of using a drug to change symptoms or inhibit certain functions, we're actually trying to get the body back to a natural balance.
Yeah.
So you need less drugs for your life. And then they tend to work, if you need a drug, it'll work better later.
Yeah.
Yeah, because basically all drugs are derived from plants anyway.
Some are, some aren't. So most of the chemotherapy comes from, clothes dyes? That are some of the most toxic substances on the face of the earth.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's how they actually researched chemotherapy for leukemia in kids. And if you've got a kid, then that's what they've used to technically poison the cancer and hopefully your kid survives. And that was really what they were doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, then there was surgery. So the history of cancer is not really great reading. There's no technical kind of research around surgery because there's no double-blind placebo crossover intervention studies that you can do for surgery.
Yeah.
We operated on 5 people, didn't operate on these. It's not the way it works. So there was trial and error there. So it's an interesting field, and the more science is coming behind it. A lot of doctors assume there's no science behind what we do, but I sit there and see paper after paper after paper of what they're looking at and what works and the research around it. So the fact they don't read it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose what the pharmaceutical companies do, that let's say that they find a plant, a naturopath might come along and say spinach does this for you or something, and they'll break it all down, take the chemicals out of it, and say this is the one component that actually does something. What do you think about that? Are they missing out on a synergy there, that the actual whole plant does something that maybe the active constituent, are they throwing out the baby with the bathwater?
Yeah, there's opinions that vary around that. So they look at the active ingredient. If they can make a movie about, was it Sean Connery going through the Peruvian forest trying to find a cure for cancer, obviously it's got to be legit that some plants out there are going to do that. But extracting some active ingredient does tend to have an effect. But from our attitude, the whole plant works. And so trying to isolate things down to the nth degree is not necessarily the best way to actually go about things. And then concentrate in that, and then it produces side effects, whereas the natural kind of herb typically doesn't.
Yeah.
So then side effects, they kind of, that's it. That's the way it goes. But then we've got other drugs that you can take for that.
Yeah.
And the list grows.
Yeah, it becomes a snowball effect of medication.
Well, it's I've read this. I've got a friend who's he's an interesting cat, Colin. We'll have to get him on once anyway. And he lent me this book, which is it's an interesting book. It's called The Devil Under the Microscope, and it's the history of where the first antibiotic came from. And they never thought they'd make an antibiotic. And it was actually one of the huge some pharmaceutical company just did 1 million tests and found this weird substance that stopped these mice from dying. But it was kind of that. It goes into the history. So that wasn't a bad thing. The first time antibiotics were used was in Pearl Harbor. Okay. And they saved a lot of people's lives with this wonder drug. And now they give it to cows to get them fat. And it's just fucking everywhere, So what should be a nuclear bomb to use it as a last resource kind of becomes...
Prescribed for a cold.
Yeah, well, even worse than that, prescribed to animals to make them fat, and then we eat the animals and stuff. So it's what he was going on about the history, say, in the United States of medicine, and just what an absolute schmozzle it was. The United States was just snake oil salesmen and all that, actually literally selling snake oil to people and stuff and going from town to town. And it seems to be, and that kind of morphed into the pharmaceutical companies as we know them. It still was a money-driven enterprise, which to me seems a bit, it's good to make money, but surely it should be more important to heal people first. And if you can cure someone, you'd want to cure them. In a normal way, a doctor should want to cure someone, but a pharmaceutical company, you think, it's not in their best interest to cure someone.
They want to sell product.
Yeah, they want to sell product. And, the topical thing is should we even go there? Well, we probably should. Topical thing is Pfizer now saying that you're going to need a jab for this bloody thing every year of your life for the rest of your life. Now that is it's really funny that coincides with the way marketing is going. Apple, you can't buy a computer now or something because it's out of date in 2 years. You have to continually. The new form of capitalism isn't you buy a product, which is the actual capitalism. It's basically buy a product, it's a good product, tell your mates, and they buy the product, and everyone's happy. Whereas this is you buy a subscription forever. And that's what seems to be the pharmaceutical companies are going for now. They're not in the business of curing people. So
the pharmaceutical industry is designed, obviously, with some idea of we want to actually provide healthy solutions. But then the pharmaceutical industry sponsor the universities. So then the university is told, I want a return on the investment, teach the doctors how to use my tools better. Yeah. And they seem to be the only tools that they get taught to use predominantly. Yeah. They do 8 hours of clinical nutrition training. So apparently nothing that you eat actually affects your health.
That's great.
But it's like, hang on, what have we been doing since the dawn of time that has actually enabled us to still be on the planet? Yeah. And it's eating food. And we know if we eat the wrong food, it has all these different consequences and they're not good. Oh, we can offset that with drugs. So we're not going to talk about the food because we can get to sell more things. Yeah. I think as soon as you start taking the monetary value of the process over what you're actually doing, that's where it tends to fall apart. And that's where I kind of go, there are certainly lots of benefits to pharmaceuticals, but the system that it's applied with is actually not necessarily in the best interest. Yeah.
Yeah, well, incentives.
Yeah.
People always follow, systems always follow incentives.
Yeah.
What's the incentive? Now, if you're a shareholder-backed pharmaceutical company, your incentive, your number one incentive is not to the patient, it's not to the doctors, it's to the shareholders.
Yeah.
And your incentive to them is to make them money. You know, and it's not a conspiracy or anything. That is the way a capitalist system works. That's what, and you know, and it's why maybe, like, and the government's actually the one that puts the most money into research and development for medicine through the universities. Like, who came up with these vaccines? It's the universities, and then it gets handed over to companies to spread around. And I was thinking, why wouldn't? And that's one thing I did a bit of research about naturopathy, and there's, like you're saying, there's no, like, they don't really do double-blind studies and stuff. But the thing is, these studies cost so much money, and there's not enough money in herbs and that for pharmaceutical companies to do it. So there's no incentive for them to actually test. You know, I'm sure you'd be happy to have your methods tested. You know, they work for me, and they've worked for a lot of people I know. So, but there's no money, there's no incentive. So maybe there's a role for government to actually start doing some research into this and doing tests.
You can't patent a nutrient. You can't patent a herb. You can patent a process, but that's still kind of argumentative around. They've been doing this for 5,000 years.
Yeah.
Some people like, obviously, and I'm happy for people to question what I do, and I have no issue with that. I see that it works. Nothing works all the time. But working with the human body is going to pay off at some point in time, as in preference to working against it and thinking that the body's not smart enough to know what it's trying to do, and will shut that down. And you kind of go, but that's going to blow up in your face at some point in time. But I do talk about the two biggest growing nations on the face of the earth. So who has the most numbers? China and India.
Yeah.
Who has the two longest standing traditional medicines?
Those guys.
China and India. So Ayurveda's been around 40,000 years, traditional Chinese medicine about 5,000. Who actually has all of the wealth and the exposure to pharmaceuticals? Actually, America.
Yeah.
Who has some of the sickest individuals per capita? America. So who's relying on their traditional medicine more so than pharmaceuticals? Well, India and China, because there's a lot of poverty there. So then you kind of go, so just as a general comment, does traditional medicine pan out? We're talking about they're reproducing faster than the Americans.
Yeah.
They're living longer than the Americans. And they're relying on traditional medicine to achieve that. Americans are getting sicker, and they're relying on pharmaceuticals. So as a generalised sort of observation, you're kind of going, well, if you look at the stats.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed there's, I can't remember her name, there's a great Indian academic, and she's been talking about the food resources. And there's some grains that have been cultivated in India, genetically modified over 5,000 years, for like 5,000 years, these grains. And some lovely American billionaire's come along. We won't mention his name, Mr. Gates.
Oh, Gates.
Yeah. And he's now put a patent on these grains that the Indian farmers have had for thousands of years. And now he owns this. And he's trying to stop these people who have been living this way for 30, 40,000 years because he owns the grain, and he wants them now to go monoculture, like one you can sell this type of grain for the wheat bix or whatever. Like that's what he's trying to do. It's a really strange thing. I suppose he always was a monopolist, and he thinks that's the way to go. But I think if you look at nature, she's about diversity, isn't she? You know?
Well, same with the soil. Like, you're meant to grow different things in.
Yeah.
If you're going to grow something in the soil, you can't be the same thing every time.
Yeah.
The same plant will actually pull the same nutrients out.
Yeah.
So if you grow the same plant in the same section of soil, you're depleting that section of soil of those specific nutrients that plant requires. If they rotate them around, then you actually get in different nutrients within soil.
Yeah, crop rotation. It's just, we got taught that at school. Like, I grew up in New Zealand, and we're just a big farm, basically. And it's a classic point of what's changed over there. Who's that? Is that
Not
me?
mine.
Oh my gosh.
It can't be me.
It's not me, mate.
I'll give you that. Sorry, guys.
Mine's always off.
Oh,
Evidence.
yeah, that's so weird. And we were taught, I didn't go to rural school, but because it's a big farm, they all taught us about crop rotation. We used to go visit some farms and that. And so I went to school late 80s, early 90s, and now I don't think they teach that because New Zealand's turned into one huge herd, one huge cattle farm, and like New Zealand's rivers are some of the most polluted in the world, even
Really?
considering India. Clean Green New Zealand is a load of bullshit. So they've got, all they do is grow one type of grass for the cows to eat,
Yeah.
and that needs shitloads of phosphate, and they just pour it on there like it's raining, and it goes straight into the rivers, and they get algae blooms. You can't swim in the rivers in New Zealand, most of them. The ones I grew up swimming in, and it's all for this one company, Fonterra, to make money.
Wow.
And so it's a big political football now, you know. So, yeah, and that's a monoculture. What used to be sheep. New Zealand was a sheep thing, and sheep are a
Yeah.
lot less dangerous. They don't need that. They can eat different types of grass and things like that. You know,
Okay.
they're not so full on as a cow. And this intensive cattle farming is ruining the country, really. Yeah. So it's that monoculture idea, which comes to it's not really a capitalist thing. I think, you know, because capitalism in its idea is a perfect capitalist system's the farmers market. You know, everyone's got their little stalls, and I've got better bread than you, and I'll sell more bread. You know, that's the
It's
idea of it.
dictatorship, because
Yeah.
it's like, this is what you'll eat, this is what you consume.
Absolutely.
This is the way we do it.
It's actually feudalism. We're the lords, and we're telling you what to grow.
Yeah.
You know, and you will grow it.
Yeah.
So yeah, neo-feudalism. So we're switching sides. But Gary's on the side of good here.
Well, it's funny when you talk about that. I actually think about it's exactly the same. So the ecosystem of the planet is very similar to the ecosystem within our gut.
Yeah.
You can't sort of do mono versions of anything. So traditional cultures have all this diversity of bugs in their gut, and that's how they actually can fight off better quality diseases. And then they look at some modern people eating a modern processed diet, and their diversity has disappeared. So it leaves these gaps for, you know, infections that are never meant to actually gain any momentum that actually start to get in there.
Yeah.
And then you've got to use all these heavy drugs, so whether pharmaceuticals, so the antibiotics and even prednisone and things like that, to control the result of that. And it throws it further out of whack. And then we then don't eat, you know, proper food, and it's processed.
Yeah.
And it's getting more singular, just like what we're doing in the ecosystem. And it's bizarre how you kind of see this relationship around that. And we can see it happening in the ecosystem. We can kind of hear it happening in the gut. And we look at all these chronic inflammatory processes and autoimmune diseases that are happening now. And autoimmunity was originally observed as the immune system has lost the plot and it's too aggressive. Now they're finding that it's actually the immune system got tired.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Really run down, and then started to then not be able to perform the job it was supposed to. So we were taught, don't do any immune boosting herbs with autoimmune because it's counterintuitive. Now they're actually going, you need to support that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, it still started in the gut, because Hippocrates talked about all diseases begin in the gut, and that was 400 BC. He said that.
Wow.
So 400 BC, to almost 2,500 years ago, someone was switched on, and then every doctor takes a Hippocratic oath.
Yep.
And we're not talking about gut health as a core
It's starting
for
to
anything.
it's starting to happen now, though.
It's
isn't
starting
it?
to shift, because the knowledge and the information is just overwhelming. And it's nice that what I've been hanging on to and sort of standing my ground on, it's like gut first and then we talk about other stuff, has now finally starting to pan out.
Yeah.
Gaining momentum. People are becoming aware too, because the information's out there a bit more too now. I think you even see it with like the whole like there's the research done on like marijuana, for example, as a whole plant.
Yeah.
Like the benefits, whereas before there was no research done on any of that stuff.
No.
Everyone knows about the supposed effects on like inflammation and the different things. You'd know more than
CBD
us, I'm
oil and
CBD,
things like that.
all that kind of stuff.
Evidently, hemp seed is the most easily absorbed version of vitamin C you can have, or something for it's like the human gut is meant for hemp seed. Have you heard that?
No.
Yeah, like Indian ladies like to get hemp seed, smash it, make a beautiful patty out of it, there's some cumin there, and it's one of the healthiest things you can eat. It just goes straight in there. Your gut loves it, man.
But again, that comes back to, I guess you can't patent plants. So
So there's no big money to be made out of that. And like any patent is obviously worth technically billions of dollars.
Yeah.
People disappear over tens of thousands to $100,000 for 11 billions.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. One of the points that I used to always sit back and think when people ask you for money to sponsor research into cancer or heart disease or things like that.
Yeah.
So we raise the money to pay for research, to find some pathway that then a pharmaceutical steps in, creates a drug for that,
Yeah.
and then they earn billions of dollars from that.
Yeah.
So we raise the money so the pharmaceutical industry can earn
Profit
billions of
from it,
dollars.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we have to buy that back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is
Kinda go,
kind of.
where did that, how did that happen?
Yeah. It's very
It's just-
strange, isn't it?
I don't know. We're not very open-eyed to this stuff, are we? It just kind of happens in front of us and we go, oh, yeah, all right.
Yeah. Where's
That's the way it is.
What's what Adam over there? That guy over there, you guys can't see him. He's now moved off. He's the Jamie without the internet, so it doesn't quite work. He has to do, what is that,
Some
sign
dialogue.
language or some shit to us. Do some interpretive dance about Monsanto. That's another thing, getting back to food. It's only really, unless you live on a farm or have an amazing garden, it's only people that are well off that can afford organic food. And if you're not eating organic food, you're basically, I need to do more research into it. I actually need to go to some farms. But the research I've seen is when they use Roundup, they're not just using it to kill plants. They actually 2 weeks, this is what Eggy said. Remember, he was on here saying 2 weeks before the blueberries get picked, they sprayed a whole fucking crop of Roundup because it makes them bigger. And they go boom, so to get a couple of big years of crops. Now, what happens with Roundup is that the reason it kills the weeds in it is because it stops these pathways where the plants make these hormones, and the blueberries that are Roundup resistant don't have those pathways for the hormones, so they don't have those hormones. Turns out we kind of need those fucking hormones.
Yeah.
So if we're eating plants that are being sprayed of this poison, it does affect us. Would you agree with that? Or?
The other thing with Roundup is it also encourages fungal species to be more aggressive and grow more resilient.
Yeah.
And in my practice, I see a lot of fungal issues. So sometimes we call it candida, but in the way I see it, it's more fungal stuff. But fungal bugs produce some pretty heavy toxins that give our liver a hard time.
Yeah.
That then messes with hormonal stuff. Fungal things can make you exhausted, tired, affect your thyroid. And we're spraying our environment and breeding this to come back on us at some point in time.
Yeah.
And if you talk about hormonal imbalances and fatigue and thyroid issues, it's absolutely huge. And then to actually make that worse, take an antibiotic.
Yep.
Because the antibiotic attacks the cell wall of the bacteria, and a bacteria can't live without its cell wall. So that's how we kill them.
Yep.
The problem with fungal forms, the antibiotic identifies its cell wall, goes after that, and the fungal form can actually take its cell wall off and chuck it away. It's like sort of identifying someone by the jacket that they're wearing, and you go, hey, cool, take my jacket off. Can't find me now. But cell wall deficient organisms can actually punch holes in your gut lining and get into your bloodstream. So that's why you upgrade most fungal things with antibiotics. And most women know there's a very heavy link between antibiotic use and thrush.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So they've already kind of seen that to a certain degree, but in my practice, you just see all these fungal things, and then you also see some parasitic things that support fungal things. So there's actually these networks of these bugs being opportunistic. I don't think they're necessarily vindictive, but they're doing their life cycle. They've been around longer than us.
Yeah.
They've learned to survive. So they find ways to kind of hang out and also support each other's lifestyle. And we're the ones that actually pay the price as our health.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I describe it to clients is if you bought 2 litres of milk and you stuck it in the fridge, how long would it last? A week and a half?
Yeah.
If you took that milk out of the fridge, stuck it on the bench in the sun on a hot summer's day, how long would it last? Literally a couple of hours.
Yeah.
But it's the same milk, right? So how does it suddenly go from it'll last a week and a half to a couple of hours? It's the environment in which we either encourage bacterial growth by the heat or we inhibit bacterial growth by keeping it in the fridge. My goal with clients and talking to people is don't be that version on the shelf.
Yeah.
Don't be sitting there encouraging bacterial growth or cancer growth or anything like that.
Yeah.
Design your lifestyle so that you are inhibiting things. They're always there. There's always cancer cells in us, and we have all these checklists and we kill it off. How do so many of us end up with cancer? Well, we failed those checklists on a regular basis.
Yep.
So try and design that system, which is always balancing and checking, to actually support you so you don't encourage these bugs to grow, these parasites, these abnormal cells. So down the track, then you've got less disease. So your lifespan and your health span end up being very similar timelines.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Yeah, because you want your health span to, if it's going to stop, as in you start dying, you really want that to be down to a couple of days or a week or maybe a couple of hours if you can make it.
Yeah.
I know some people, they start dying in their mid-30s and they take 35 years to die.
Yeah.
It's not pretty.
That kind of sucks to...
It sucks, eh? You want to be like Lemmy from Motorhead, man. He did speed for what? He died at 70, and he is, I don't know, he's joined the band at 14. He was Jimi Hendrix roadie, got his LSD and all that for him. He took, speed for, I think, 60 years, the heaviest heavy metal band ever, loudest band in the world, and then he died of some cancer when he was 70, and I think the cancer got him in like 2 days or something. It was like, bang.
Wow.
I know it's horrible, but he had a fucking good life. And if we're going to talk about death, which is, is a subject that no one ever talks about, and I suppose death is part of the life cycle. I've been doing a bit of research into death lately. My stepfather, who people on the show might know, he's going through that process now, and I didn't realise if you let it go, take its natural course, death, it is actually a process, and there's certain things that happen. Like he's in a hospice at the moment, and I'll tell you anyway. And mum calls me up, and she said, "Oh, well, Paul's been seeing things and stuff." And it's weird because I just watched this documentary on a guy that had done a whole research book on hospices, and he hadn't gone and spoken to doctors now. He actually gone and spoken to nurses, people that were dealing with people that were dying. And he's written this whole thing on this process of dying and what happens. And they start having visions of family or dogs or people come to visit them. They get happy. Like it's a whole, like your body knows how to die. And that's happening to my stepdad, man. He's meeting, like mum turns up there and he says, "Oh, my mate, I think Vincent or something like that, from when he was 18, he was here and he said everything's great. He died in a car crash when we were 18 and stuff like that." And she was telling me these stories, and I'd literally just watched this documentary on this process. It's fucking freaky, man.
There was a guy on Rogan, Willie. Did you listen to that one?
Which one?
So he, where I can't remember who it was, but he was dying.
Yeah.
And he had someone...
Sebastian Younger, he wrote books.
Yeah, he's writing books on it.
You better repeat it because they want you to know.
Oh, he's writing books called, what is it?
Tribe.
Yeah. It's on...
One was Rest Repo.
Rest Repo. And they were on were they about the process of like dying and people's experiences?
He's writing
but
now.
they come back, so... Like he was about to die and he felt like he was sinking into the dark, but people like that, like you were saying, people that he'd lost kept coming to him and like, come this way, everything's good, and then so it's like it seems to be a reoccurring thing that happens, and he's done the same research and said like these same experiences seem to happen to everyone that dies. Whether that's linked to maybe a DMT release in your brain or
I've thought about the DMT release at death. What's the evolutionary purpose for that? Like, if everything's just evolution, if you're an old fella, you've had your kids and your grandkids and you're about to die, why would the universe give you a trip at the end? It just doesn't. You'd just be a bit of mud, wouldn't you? Like, see you later, you've done your dash. It just seems to be...
You're going to go out the way you come in.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, I was just...
I don't know.
I watched, there's a musician I like, and he's just put out a little doco, and this lady's on it, and she was talking about her earliest memory, and she was saying, my earliest memory, and I remember it now, she said, I must have been, man, I wasn't even a year old or something. And she goes, and it was like a flash in my head, and I remember it, and I said to myself, and I couldn't even talk, "Oh, back again." That was the first thing she ever remembered thinking. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That is weird.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on.
That might be for... Yeah, wow.
Well, that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
We've gone pretty wild and pretty deep.
Well, how do you get into... What pushed you to get into naturopathy?
It started mainly when I was 8. I was run over by a car, and they almost cut my leg off, and 5 surgeries, month in hospital.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And the medical profession really didn't have a whole lot of stuff like to get me back functional. Natural therapies did. Year 10, I did some work placement, like with a guy that was a chiro. He was doing massage and acupuncture, and his wife did iridology and herbalism. And I kind of went, it sounds pretty cool, but have all the tools there. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up type thing until probably end of year 11, start of year 12, and saw a handbook for naturopathy and just went, so you can do herbs, you can do nutrition, you can do bark flowers, you can talk about food, you can do massage, you can have all these tools to actually help. And it was the one thing that kind of interested me, and 35 years later, I haven't shut up about it. So kind of that was what I wanted to do. That was all I wanted to talk about. So that's where I kind of went. I had lots of injuries, so I learned how to fix injuries.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a side sort of project. I got into microcurrent stuff.
Yeah, I want to talk about that actually.
Because that, well, yeah. So that was how I got into it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you start your own practice and it sucks and it's hard and people say it's going to take 5 years, and I went, I don't want to hear that. 25 years later, still kind of go, oh man. So, you know, I take the attitude that I love looking after my clients, and I want to see them improve their quality of life.
Yeah.
And I only get business out of that if I achieve that goal for them. So I'm really clear on that concept that I'm here, I'm working hard, I want to see you with the biggest grin on your face, and I get paid to put a grin on someone's face and have them going, oh man, I'm so happy, I feel so much better, I'm playing with my kids, I'm out doing this, I'm back doing sport. And you kind of go, that, and I get paid for that. That's the coolest thing. So
it's a big impact to have on people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is rewarding. There's a lot of sort of positive feedback, and the amount of couples that I've helped actually have kids and bring kids into this world is really cool. And so it is a rewarding type thing, and it's never boring. Yeah. And I do get bored easily. So the human body, there's still so much we don't know.
Yeah.
And because we don't know, then it's always open to learning. And the more we understand, the more passionate I get about it. And people start talking about stuff, and I go, yeah, I found out this, and you can do that, and you can do this. And the frustrating thing is I have to sit back and wait for nature to do its course.
Yeah.
Because bones heal in 6 weeks on average. I've done it in 2.
Wow. Yeah.
So broke my leg in a tournament. It took me 2 weeks to get back to training, and I've got it x-rayed like 3 times in that time. So there's the human potential, and we see that in sport, that someone like Nathan Miller can like do the training that he does and recover the way he does.
Yeah.
And and that's not normal. But then the human body has this potential. But then when it comes to healing and health, we kind of go, nah, that's not real. But then you look at Wim Hof and what he's been able to achieve.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And it's like, we need to stop. We got to stop talking that down.
Yeah.
And start trying to focus on how someone can achieve that and why. I don't want to be the next Wim Hof. But it's kind of like what.
But Wim's doing the right thing. He's going to universities. They're putting plugs in him, saying, "Here we go," and they don't want to believe it, but it's right. It's really strange.
You can't deny it, though.
Yeah, I think it shows that mindset you get when you come out of university, that the blinkers are on, and this is the way it is, and anything else is abnormality, and you get cognitive dissonance. You just can't see it. And Wim he's been around since the 80s, probably earlier, doing this thing. No one gave a shit about him until there's maybe a slight change or a generational change at the unis.
There's been that stigma attached maybe from a certain time, I don't know, where everyone...
I think maybe the psychedelic stuff in the 60s and anything that became public enemy number one. They stopped all research into psychedelics. Just carte blanche. No one can do it. You could be Oxford Uni and you're not allowed to touch it. It's insane. It's like the Inquisition. And that took a whole generation or two
that's
to get rid of.
Again now.
Yeah, now
it's starting to research.
And it actually is some good medicine if it's used properly. You know, so
if anyone's got any ketamine, let us know.
Yeah.
Well, see, ketamine is used immensely in the US with IV nutrition.
Okay. Yeah.
So they use the NAD in the US and ketamine, and they get amazing results. In Australia, we're so backwards in so many of those things. Yeah. In Australia, you can't get DHEA, So it's a rate-limiting enzyme that helps your body produce for estrogen or testosterone. So because it helps you make testosterone, it's got to be an anabolic steroid. It's rate-limiting, so you can take 10 times the recommended dose and nothing more will actually be created. It just gets you to that normal level.
Okay, yeah.
So that's still banned in Australia. You can buy it off any health food store, like nutrition store in the US.
Yeah.
Melatonin you can't buy on the shelf. And I think I heard someone recently say they've changed that, but it's prescription only. And it's like, but if you use it stupidly, it doesn't work and it doesn't make you feel good. And there is everything has a toxicity limit. Everything. Water has a toxicity limit.
Yeah.
So, but it's made to be quite dangerous when it's not technically, and you can buy that off any shelf in the US.
Yeah.
And in the land of litigation, if you're going to sell something that is dangerous, you will get sued and it will disappear, and it's still on the shelf.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The last time I checked, this wasn't real safe when you drank a lot of it.
No, that's right.
Yeah, but see, you think about the kickbacks, and also, so why are we still selling cigarettes? If
That's
the
a classic one.
If the government genuinely is really
outright
worried about, and how much that costs, why are they still selling cigarettes?
Yeah.
It's not like we're going, I don't know, we're still out to,
Everyone
not really
knows.
clear on what it is. It's not really.
Yeah, they had cigarettes had to create. The companies had to create their own, because they wouldn't be allowed to be sold if they were a food, an ingestible product. So they'd definitely be banned. And if they're a service or something like that, they wouldn't be allowed to sell because they'll kill you. So they actually had to invent a third way for cigarettes to be sold because they're nothing but death.
Yeah.
So
the fact that anyone would pick one up now and just start smoking,
man, I see
my
heaps
mind.
of kids
But I'm
fucking doing it, man.
I don't get it. You didn't get high off it. There's no allure in that.
I think there's a lot of cigarette smoking on Netflix and shit. You notice that there's 1950s, 1960s shows, and Tarantino gets away with it and stuff as well. He makes good movies, admittedly, but there's a lot of cigarette smoking, man, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's some tobacco money in there somewhere, because it's cool. I did it. I used to smoke when I was a kid. It's cool. It took me fucking ages to get it down, but that's what it was. And in fact, when I was young, they used to sell packets of 10s, which had more nicotine in them to get the kids hooked because we couldn't afford it. And they used to sell us these little, when we were even before then, we used to get them when we were like 12 or something, those packets of 10s. And before then, they used to give cigarette lollies. Did you remember them?
Yeah, the fads.
Spacemen or whatever. It's fucking wild when you look at that stuff now, isn't it? You know?
I guess.
I can't even take my kids. I won't even give them a Happy Meal or anything like that. Like they're
Shit
just brainwashed,
food,
shit food, and
yeah.
it's brainwashing them.
Yeah, I suppose I tried. I remember at 6 trying to smoke all my old boys' cigarettes.
Yeah.
And just pick it. Next one, I think I went through a whole pack, and then that must have turned me off for
That
life.
was it for you.
Yeah, that was it. But I don't get it.
I never got into it. Mainly my grandfather was a chain smoker and died when my father was like 15 or 16. So then the thought of me picking up a cigarette and him seeing that, I just couldn't do that to him. So, and then because it tastes so good and makes you feel awesome and
you smell so good,
and then it's not like you're socially ostracised or something like that these days. So you kind of I just don't get it.
Yeah. No, I didn't get it either.
Everyone has to go outside and
you see them out there in the restaurant and that, and they're out there, the poison nipple.
They walk in, everyone looks at you like.
They weren't breastfed enough. I think it's got something to do with that. Poison nipple cigarettes. Remember they bought out death cigarettes with a skull and crossbones? I think an anti-smoker guy bought out death cigarettes and he fucking sold shitloads.
Of course.
Because they're hardcore, because they're smoking them.
Hardcore. Everyone's hardcore until they see that black dot on the x-ray.
Yeah.
And then they go, uh-oh.
Until their little friend welcomes them to the
That's
dark.
right. Come over here.
Come on.
It does amaze me how many times we can be ignorant of what we're doing until it's pointed out that this is the consequences. But I mean, it's the same, like driving a car a certain way, how much alcohol you drink, cigarettes you smoke, the food that you eat. And people just don't want to hear that it's the food that they eat, that what you put in your gut is actually what your body has to work with. And if it's poor quality, it's a lot harder to break down and deal with. You'll get much less out of it. You chew up more resources trying to process it, and you're actually encouraging bugs that are going to kick your ass at some point in time to breed. And then they get bigger and bigger and more populations. And those bugs The reason we call bad bugs bad is what they produce is toxic or harmful or irritating. The more of those you breed, the worse you're going to feel. So it's a bit like, I always use the dog analogy. If you've got 10 dogs running around your house at home, sounds all right until you find out they're not toilet trained.
Yeah.
And you get home at the end of the day and your house stinks and they've pissed and crapped all through your house.
Yep.
If you wanted to improve that, you could use a deodorizer, right?
Yeah.
Install some fans to, better exhaust. And you kind of go, that's a lot of money that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you got rid of the dogs first and then cleaned up, that would make more sense to me. So that's why I go after like sort of bad bugs and listen for that, like how many are there and what they're doing. The testing processes these days are reasonably expensive to find out where your bug profile is. And I'm still very suspicious that we don't know the names of all the bugs on the face of the earth.
Yeah,
I think that's
for
a
sure.
reasonable call.
Yep.
And because Australia's an island, our bug profile should be fairly static. So as long as people don't do international travel, we can't do it now. But obviously we have done it for many, many years.
Yeah.
So we jump on a plane, we fly to Bali, we eat their food, drink their water and come back. We bring their bugs back.
Yeah.
We go to Borneo, we go to America, we go to Europe, we go
Yeah.
to all different parts
So
of Asia.
how does that affect the biome? Does that mean we need to be across all the continents in our gut? Like we need
No, you think about it, evolution-wise, when did we ever travel to another continent?
Yeah, it didn't happen.
It was
Yeah,
extremely
yeah,
rare.
we did it. Yeah.
And if you did, to conquer it, your life expectancy was a hell of a lot shorter to then worry about long-term effects of mixing your microbiome.
Yeah.
But then we're mixing it with different bugs from different places. And so we know the names of the bugs that kill us, but we don't necessarily know the names of all of the bugs that might compromise your health. And if you had like that dude and that guy, once you get those three there, then you're in trouble. How are we going to track all of that?
You can't really.
How do we track what's coming in? How do we track how many you've got? Which ones are troublemakers? Which ones aren't? And it becomes fairly chaotic. And that's why doing a generalised, let's just try and get rid of as many bad guys as possible. And then, because I tend to do the live blood stuff, you can see the changes within the blood. You can see how much happier it gets, how better their immune... If their immune system looks better, most of your immune system is in or around your gut. We took this sample from your finger. I have to assume that gut stuff have to be a lot better because it's affecting your entire immune system.
Yeah.
Your immune system fights better, or it's also responsible for your inflammatory process. So less inflammation means less pain. And inflammation drives everything that kills us. So it's like, wouldn't you want to minimise that?
Yeah, for sure.
Allergy response, that's where your body's learning about the world that we put through our gut. If you could improve your immune response, you decrease your allergies. And there have been clients that have come to see me that are diagnosed anaphylactic. They've gotten into the Navy years later, and the Navy has diagnosed them as zero allergies.
Yep.
I can't make a claim, but they were anaphylactic and then they weren't. And the Navy's covering its butt because it doesn't want, obviously, dramas and that down the track. So it's fascinating that you can actually modify a lot of this behaviour within your gut, but that's where it gets primed.
Yeah.
And that's where your body learns, and it makes sense that it learns because it's not getting a challenge from anywhere else that often.
Yeah.
That's true. That's where you put everything in, isn't it? It goes straight to your gut.
Yeah.
And so that's where all the main defences are.
Yes.
And there's a lot of research now into autism and gut health as well.
It's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's only just gaining momentum because I think we've tried lots of other things, and as long as those things continue to fail, we have to keep coming back to what we did actually see that worked.
Yeah.
But I've listened to professors and like psychologists, psychiatrists, professors in psychiatry going, the first thing I do with my clients is take them off their meds and talk to them about food and lifestyle.
Yep.
She's not very popular in her field.
No.
But it's kind of like she's actually looking at what you put in, and there's a huge amount of research that what you eat dictates your mood
Yeah, for sure.
and your mental health.
Yeah.
Because you have 95% of your serotonin being made in your gut, but we take antidepressants to pump up your serotonin.
Is that right? In your gut?
95.
Wow.
And it's like, so if your gut is inflamed, you're missing out on a certain percentage.
Yeah.
So that can then influence mood and behaviour and some other things. And it's like, so wouldn't you start with the gut before you wanted to start medicating
Yeah.
and looking at things? So
Well, I've seen a little. It was a short story a few years ago. I was on an Australian show. It was an Australian a fun show, half an hour science show, New Science, and they did a fecal matter transfer. on this lady who had just, she was suicidal in that. Her gut, she had no gut biome. She was just, water passed through her, man. She'd been living like it for years. And they went through the old books, and that's what they did hundreds of years ago. They'd do a shit transfer, if you had problems in your gut. And they did it to her, and it cured her over fucking night, And then there was, a few months later, there was another show talking about the new research into autism and gut bacteria. And I thought, why the fuck don't they combine the both of those? Then wouldn't it be a simple matter? If you can can you reflora the gut that easily?
Yeah, well, they kill it off and then they reflora it. So there are people that are donors for good quality microbiome, and that means they can't do international travel too.
Oh, okay.
Well, you can't go and mess with that balance.
Yeah.
But
it affects, but it goes even deeper than that, doesn't it? Like you get marathon runners and stuff. That there's a famous case where a marathon runner got her cousin's fecal transfer from her, and her cousin was obese, and like 6 months later, the poor girl's obese.
Yep. So your bug profile does affect many, many things.
Yeah.
Not that it's an excuse that it's my bugs and therefore makes me fat. But
Yeah.
That's why I ate 10,000 calories today.
It's not the 10,000 calories. It's that bug.
Yeah.
It's a fat bastard. But it's the biggest thing that gets me is there's not really any education. People's understanding of, they have no idea what they're eating or what they're supposed to be eating. Or
It's not taught at school, is it? Like,
no,
where are you
there's no
supposed to learn that?
education on it. They get given that stupid food pyramid.
Which was bullshit.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was
it was made by...
it's now banned.
Yeah.
Because you could buy your portion of that food pyramid.
Yeah.
And they got taken to court and they worked out who had bought their section.
Is that right?
And they went, that's it, you can't use that
grain's
anymore.
bought.
It's out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they just went, well, you got to have this. We'll sponsor it, but we'll put the most money up and we'll get the biggest chunk of the food pyramid.
Yeah. And
What was that? Was that
the whole
grains?
grains?
That was all the processed
grains,
shit.
the shit that you're not supposed to eat. What do you think about that? About the lectins and the whole grain thing? Like, there's another. Like, let's say you're trying to be healthy, you jump online. Jesus Christ! You get one expert saying whole grains are great for you. You get one other one saying full of lectins, it's going to kill you. Never do it. I'm a surgeon. I've done 10,000 operations. Like, there's no real. I'm a smart enough guy, but there's no real way to navigate it.
Whole grains are not even really whole grains, though. Like, they can put anything on the packet or sell it as a product if it's only of a certain percentage of the flour or something. I had a friend that worked at a big bread company, and she informed me of how they actually passed the grain as a whole grain. It only had to be a tiny percentage of it going in, and there was no real difference in when they could sell it off. I can't explain it exactly. It was so many years ago, but it was absolute shit.
So defining things, but even if they say it's a whole grain, whole grains have only been in our diet for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Agriculture actually created that. So it's kind of like we haven't that shouldn't be the be all and end all in our diet, but the dietetics world tends to promote that first and foremost. And it's like, if I walked out into the escarpment and walked around and tried to find enough wild growing wheat or barley or something like that to make a loaf of bread, that doesn't make sense to me at all. But then we'll have a loaf of bread every day. Yeah. Hang on, what? Where would that ever happen in nature? So my kids used to love those Naked and Afraid shows, where they'd put two survival experts naked and in the wild.
Oh, wow.
They're allowed to take one utensil, so whether it's a knife or a flint or something like that. And then they could make their own clothes and blah, blah, blah. So when you're out there for 21 days, you'll eat anything.
Yep.
But then today, we get to walk out the door. We don't even actually have to leave the house. We can just call food, and it's the food that I want. Someone else makes it. Someone else has grown that rice. Someone else has hunted that chicken. Someone else has ground that curry. And I order it, and it comes to my door.
Yeah.
I have zero effort making or preparing that.
Yeah.
And you're getting these calories, and you're getting things that you don't know what is actually in it. So whether it's a grain or not, it's not that simple. And also because it's all manufactured. Yeah. And even if it was the whole grain, we're not meant to have that amount of whole grain in our diet. And the paleo diet, I don't like following trends or things like that, but the paleo had a lot of concepts that made sense. In other words, you're eating meat because it's always been in our diet. we're eating lots of fresh fruit and veggies and some nuts and seeds and some oils here and there. It doesn't have to get more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we bring in all these whole grains and things like that. And then, like, I've seen paleo bars.
Yeah,
I didn't know Paleolithic man actually made bars. But, hey, there you go. So, then there's commercial side of it.
Yeah.
And I go, you're missing the point. Stop commercialising it.
Yeah.
It's actually more of a mindset around what you're doing and how you're eating things.
Yeah.
It comes back to that same conversation we're having about the medicines, really, and the pharmaceutical companies and versus the plants. And yeah.
But also doing your own research within, like, how you feel.
Yeah,
so this is how you work it. This is how you
Yeah.
work it out. So some people might go, this is the best thing on the planet, and you eat it. And that's according... So your microbiome is more unique to you than your fingerprint.
Wow. Yeah.
So if it's more unique to you, so if we get an apple cut in half, you eat half, I eat half, it's going to be the same reaction, right? Because it's the same apple. It depends. Is our microbiome similar? Then we'll have the same reaction. If they're significantly different, we can have potentially very different reaction. So let's make these generalizations based on what our microbiome's doing.
I was going to ask you about that. About would ethnicity? If we're living in India, we've got a completely different microbiome over there as well. So
in India, they can eat raw chicken.
Wow.
They actually do that in certain parts of India. They eat raw chicken. And this exchange student went over there and he goes, they're doing it, I should be fine. And it almost killed him.
Oh, shit.
He just scraped through the poisoning from it. So his microbiome was not set up for that.
Well, they swim around the Ganges with all those burning bodies and
yeah.
So
you think about like how you brought up, how your microbiome has grown and evolved.
Yeah.
And you need to be respectful, and then we displace ourselves. So technically, I know I'm not meant to be living in Australia. I'm meant to be living in more like Celtic areas, so Ireland and all that sort of stuff. That's where my ancestors were. But then when we see, there's some generalizations that kind of work, that if you're more that Baltic kind of Yugoslav background, they're not very good detoxifiers because they've had pristine land for centuries. So then they didn't have to be really good at detoxifying, but now they're in a toxic country, and that's what hits them harder and faster.
Yeah, whereas the Chinese probably have been cultivating for a lot longer.
Yeah, and they also ferment a lot of things, and so do the Germans and that sort of stuff. So it's interesting how they've protected themselves and learnt that.
Absolutely. And I remember years ago I went to Czech Republic and I got like a salad, and the salad came out and it was like 4 sausages and a bit of parsley. Like, it was the amount of meat and dumplings they ate, and yet they were all fucking gorgeous and slim as. I'm like, how are you guys eating this stuff and staying that shape?
And the French with their saturated fats, and they've been told saturated fats are bad, but they have low heart disease.
Low heart disease,
So the generalisations made about food that just don't pan out. Yeah. And so I kind of like to look at those generalisations.
Do you think that's a biome thing? Is it the biome that's
It would be interesting
them?
To look at the microbiome, and there's been some interesting research, like bugs on your skin, and they can actually track populations of where you've been and tell that you've been swimming in the ocean, and you tend to go to the fields and stuff like that. So they're just we're mixing bugs all the time. We're meant to be walking in nature and exposing ourselves to bugs, but you can smell the bugs after the rain when you walk through a forest.
Beautiful.
But we don't really tend to do that. We sit in a closed environment with artificial lighting and then go, I don't know what's going on with my microbiome. And it's like, well, you're not feeding it and you don't look after it. So it becomes a really interesting discussion around the food you eat, where you put it, and then you need to listen for how your body deals with that and processes it. And then you need to make some individual decisions. Because I have people telling me all the time, you should do this, don't do that, don't do this. And I go, I know that if I do that, that's how I feel. That's good, that's bad for me, and just be polite with. Yeah,
it's an individual thing. And I think that goes for your politics and what you like, for everything. You take everyone else's ideas on, but then you think about it, and you're the universe's ultimate experiment is you.
Well, you're a universe unto yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you are an ecosystem unto yourself. Yeah. But we want to then have that dictated by someone else, and you go, well, it doesn't always pan out so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That becomes a fascinating
discussion. And then we're not taught how to, we're not taught to be individualistic, really. We say we are, but we're not. We're taught this is the science. Yep. We all have to do, this is the way we do things,
Yeah.
And if you get outside the box too far, you're just ostracised,
We're not taught to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And schools are meant to teach us how to think and how to learn for ourselves, but that's not.
And they teach us what to think.
Yeah, and
as to how to think.
And they teach us to repeat what is taught to us. In other words, I'll tell you what you're allowed to say, and this is the answer.
Yeah, and it goes right through to university as well, which is the real issue. And it's not a teacher issue, I don't think. Like, my kids have got good teachers. This is just the system.
It's systemic.
Oh, yeah, definitely the system.
Because, they're good teachers, but they just don't even... who we're talking... Did we have someone on we were talking about the... was it the Finland? The number one education system in the world?
Yeah.
And, the kids do like an hour work a day and the rest of it's just playtime. And then they actually tested them against all the kids of the world. And they I think they were level with the Koreans, who do like 40 hours a day or some shit. They are ridiculous.
Dictated learning.
Oh, they're ridiculous. How they treat their kids and that, man. You know, education is all of it. And the kids already know what. And if you look, case in point is all the stuff we're doing here. And when I was a kid growing up, I wanted to go to fish and chip shop and play video games. You're just wasting your time. That's what this child wanted to do, and I wanted to play guitar and all that. But now, what is one of the biggest industries in the world is the gaming industry. Like we knew, whatever the kids were into, that's kind of where things are going to go, man. So they know what they're doing. I think you've got to guide them. But
it's been interesting to think that we're sending our kids to university to get degrees for jobs that won't exist by the time they get the degree.
It's mental.
And then you kind of go, so how do you teach someone how to actually get themselves ready for what doesn't exist yet?
Yeah. Well, that's called the arts and that, though, isn't it? And they're getting rid of those. But you read books about famous thinkers, and this is, there's been such brilliant minds, like Hippocrates and all that. But you don't read him anymore. That's in the arts. Yeah. You're out in your ass if you do that. So it's all got to be engineering. It's got to be things we already know.
Yeah, I've got a client of mine, and he's a smart dude. Like, he's finishing off his 6th degree.
Yeah.
And it's in quantum biology.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a whole kettle of fish there,
well,
doesn't it?
So the quantum world is a world that technically doesn't exist until we actually observe it.
Yeah.
That's a head screw there. And then biology and how that actually applies to how we actually work. Now, we look solid and we feel solid, but we know that those cells are made up, they make up tissues. The tissues are made up of cells. The cells are made up of molecules, and molecules are made up of atoms. And atoms are 99.9999% nothing.
Yeah.
So technically, we're constantly moving and changing, and we're technically not solid.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to get your head around, but the physics of it is actually still sound.
Yep.
So that means that whatever thought I project can actually modify my physiology. But I typically expect to see the same person in the mirror in the morning. So I do see the same person in the mirror in the morning. But I ask clients that are overweight, do you see the skinny person or the lean, better term, the lean person in the mirror? And almost never they just don't see it. So what do you expect to see? Who do you expect to actually be? And that mind stuff, as far as fighting and headset and things like that, is massive. It's massive with success and where I'm going. And you talk to people and they go, just always thought I was going to do this and make it. So then they always attracted the resources to do that and achieve that.
Yeah.
And then we create the blockages that put in front of that.
Yeah.
But then people that are always sick, and they use that as I get attention because I'm always sick.
There's a classic book I read when I was a kid called The Celestine Prophecies. Did you ever read that?
Yep.
It was like one of the first, what was it, New Age thing. But he made some really good points, and one of them was about conversations and the types of personality you might get around a dinner table. And there's a ball of energy there. Now, if you get everyone's on the same wavelength and they're bouncing off each other like a good podcast, that ball of energy gets bigger. And everyone's buzzing from it. Now, if it's not such a good group, there's a ball of energy in the middle of it, and then someone will get annoyed. You'll have the angry person over here, and he always gets pissed off. And you'll have the poor me person. She gets her energy. I'll make it a he. He gets his energy by being, what's wrong with you? I'm just saying, it's draining energy from the ball of energy that's there. And I read that when I was like 14 or something. Got a lot from it, and it's rang true so often, and especially in conversations, what's happening there.
Well, it makes complete sense, but
Yeah, it does. And you see the personalities. You go through a whole list of personalities, and they're these archetypes, you know. Yeah, and especially in kids. You know, the third kid's normally a little bit poor me-ish. Hasn't got enough attention. Did you find that?
Well, I thought that was a middle child supposed to be like that.
Yeah, well, it's probably middle. Well, if you got 5 kids.
I was number 2, and I probably every time the hospital rang, it was always me. So I don't know whether that was as in an attention thing, but it's certainly not a deliberate. So I worked out through like different kind of processes. I had an addiction to pain, and that's not a good thing.
Really?
Yeah.
You think you did?
I always found ways.
Yeah.
To do it, and then I just got used to dealing with a lot of pain over a long period of time, and then I'd learn how to fix it, and I'll go woohoo, and it's like, but that's, and then you get to a certain age, and you go, this needs to stop. It's really starting to kind of add up and become very unpleasant. But it's not a conscious thing. But you look at that. So the subconscious is about 30,000 times more powerful than your consciousness, and it's driving the bus and directing things, and it's learning and interpreting on your behalf.
Yeah.
And that's why when people go, I don't know why that triggered me, and it's like, that's called a subconscious thing, and they talk about the shadow in psychology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So actually learning about that and addressing it is how you actually grow and evolve and sort your shit out and not be such a pain in the ass to people around you.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I noticed the other day I got a pen, and I just bought it from the shop because I needed a pen, and then I put it somewhere. And it was like 5 seconds later, I couldn't fucking find the pen. I'm like, I'm the person that put that pen somewhere. You know, it just wasn't being present, was it? I wasn't there. You know, like when you lose things, it means you put it somewhere. Did you put it there, or did someone else put it there? You know, like
you're in here instead of being
way
here.
in there.
Yeah,
you know, it's good to be in there sometimes, but not when
that's
need a pen.
You can learn about yourself in there, and that's how you grow and you look for that change. But if you're just in here all the time, you miss this. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing with screens and that as well. You know, I wonder when kids are going to get sick of them, and adults actually. We can't expect kids to get sick of them without adults getting sick of them. But reality is so 3D or 4D. You got smells, you got taste, you got all this thing going on in reality that the fucking screen will never come close to, man.
Anytime I look at that and I find myself getting caught in it, like I actually get pissed off at myself.
Same, man.
I'm like, this is just shit. Like, what am I doing? It's shit. It's like, there's nothing even
the worst thing about it is they fucking hired, like Facebook and that, they hired psychologists and
addict you
especially ones that worked with heroin addicts to know how to get you. You know, so it's all, what's the word? It's so incestuous. It's just...
But it's, advertising. So they know what words actually, tag us in and get us interested and stuff like that. So I used to walk into a health food store or, bodybuilding store, and you read the blurbs and you sit there and think, man, why am I on this? Like, this sounds awesome. And you think, hang on, that's called marketing. That's not reality.
Yeah. No, the last thing you do, if you want to buy a car, is look at Toyota ad.
Yeah.
You go to someone that's critiquing Toyota or something.
You look at the McDonald's ads and you look at the Coke ads. Now, Coke makes out that you're going to be amazingly popular and really good looking and spend a lot of time on a tropical island having a ball with your friends.
Or in a floaty in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, and it's like,
hot chicks everywhere.
We're still talking about a toxic sugar-loaded drink, though, aren't we? Did we forget that bit?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Association, isn't it? But I suppose it still works. I'm hoping this younger generation is a bit more cynical. They've been just so engulfed in it. Maybe they see through it a bit more. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Because they're exposed to a lot more information than we ever were.
Yeah.
So I watch my son, he's 18, and he's always on YouTube and looking at things and comparing stuff. And,
absolutely.
The access, like, he's only just started driving cars and he knows more about cars than... He goes, oh, yeah, that's got a, 2J Xena. And I go, cool. Nice.
Well, we used to, like, even when I was a kid, you had to go to the library and get books on everything.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to learn about it, you had to think, I want to learn about that. Now I'm going to go get a book on it. Then you had to get one little bit of information on it, and then...
But you really absorbed it then, and now information's so ubiquitous.
You kind of like...
You just fucking throw it away, don't we?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
That's why I like with music, I like buying vinyl, because it means I have to give that album time. I have to put the process on, got to kids to bed, the album's on. It's not, it's not Spotify. It's just throwaway music. I should really get rid of it as well. But it's so fucking handy,
That's not a good thing to say when you're trying to build a record.
Yeah, I know. But you got to be, it's integrity, isn't it? You got to be honest. We live in such an interesting time, which is actually a bit of a curse, but
but the honesty around, so what really works? I mean, that comes back to so many different aspects of our life. So what really works? What really has an impact? What are you really interested in?
Yeah.
Integrity is one of those things that I think most people wouldn't know how to spell it, let alone understand what the hell it means.
Yeah.
Authenticity, we hear about all this all the time, and it's so easy for people to give lip service to that.
Oh, yeah, it's the new word.
It's inauthentic how fucking often it's used. Like,
and now
but it's like every catchphrase that people try to push. And life coaches, I'm just not impressed with the term.
Isn't
You're going to coach you on life, and it's like, hang on, what are you, 22?
Yeah. Oh,
seriously,
there's a lot of that.
Back up.
I'm kind of like that with my music. I'm not really interested in musicians unless they've had been divorced. And, I want people to have a fucking life to give to. The older I get, the older I want my people to get.
Well, how
to
do
be,
like, you have to have lived some real fucking experience to be able to counsel people on it, I think. Like, what kind of life have you lived? You better have gone, like, fucking everywhere and know what it's like and how you could have dealt with it. And you can't one size fits all that shit. And that's for sure. Like
life coaches, it's a kind of new phenomenon. There used to be a shaman or something. Like I like the idea of especially for males. I don't know because I'm not female, but of a guide. Like someone, an older guide, mentor. I would have liked that when I was growing up because I did some fucking stupid things. And if I'd had someone on my side, an older male, I could have just called up and said, "Man, I'm in a bad way." It would have really helped me out. So. I think there's definitely room for that.
There's no real rite of passage in our Western world to become a man, or in traditional societies, there's always that coming of age type thing.
Yeah,
and you go away with the man and you learn.
This is what's expected.
We don't have that here. You just become a man.
To a certain degree, your traditional martial arts actually offered that because there's no easy passage.
Yeah.
But then you get so many egos in that process too, and it's just hard to kind of remember what you're doing there and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And it taught me a lot, as in, because it just created so much duress for the benefit, as in, you'll learn this, you'll become better at that, and it's not about you have to be the best at this or the best at that. You just had to be, I used to teach and go, well, I just want you to be better than when you walked in tonight. That's your goal.
Yeah.
Not to be the best and not to be able to say, punch the hardest or move the best or or the fittest. It's just about your personal journey and your personal improvement.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of spills over into everything. What are you doing with yourself? Are you doing something constructive? Have you bought into someone else's ideal around what you should be doing and how you should be doing it? And I get a bit frustrated when people are repeating other people's stuff. And it's like, it's okay to repeat that, but really, what have you thought about that? Or what are you doing with yourself?
What do you really think?
Yeah.
Like, you got to come on. You got to develop that thing for yourself, and it takes time. But I think it's like people's. It's almost like a confidence within themselves to be able to back their own ideas.
That's right. Well, we're taught from your parents. They want to protect you, so don't go over there, Johnny.
Yeah.
Watch out! Don't do that! Don't jump off that fucking Johnny. You know.
Next minute, everything's fucking dangerous.
Everything's dangerous, and so Johnny's in his little box. Yeah. And don't think like that, Johnny. We're all brainwashed because we're all born into a society with a set of ideas about the right and wrong way of doing things.
Yeah.
And so depending on what society, and that's basically, it takes a lot to see that you're even in a society and that these thoughts you grew up with are just ways that this particular society has decided to do things. You know, there may be some human truths like murdering people. I don't think there's too many societies out there where that was ever an okay thing around the world, so there's probably some basic humanness to it, but eating human flesh, my people used to do that back in the day and stuff. It's not a universal thing not to do. So what I found in my ongoing journey of discovery is just to take a lot of different viewpoints. Take a terrible right-wing viewpoint and just see what they're thinking about, and see if you can. And what I find is that most people I think their motivations are to help people, even in their weird way. They want their family or their community, they see a threat coming to them. They want their community to be stronger, and I'm a protector. They might be doing it in a fucked up way and completely see the wrong enemy, which they normally do. They never say it's the banks. Yeah. They always say it's the brown people or some shit, like that. But generally, these, protection is
or is it a sense of, is it
or
the
a power
and the ego trip? I think there's a lot of that too.
But is that because people feel powerless,
Probably. That's why they need power.
Well, it's a common, it is a common thing that comes up, as in overwhelmed, powerless. They're common sort of terms that get used.
Anxious.
And so, then we want to sort of, and there's a lot of the male sort of, become a man and do all that, become more powerful. And sometimes I suppose it can be taught to a certain degree, but I think as a parent, you kind of need to lead your kids in that direction, which means the reality that scared the crap out of me having kids was they'll pick up subliminally everything that I do. So I set the standard about how to deal with success and failure and intimacy and siblings and friends and parents. Yeah. And they go, so that's how you do it. So if I get the shits and because I'm the parent, I can throw the chair across the room. And then I saw my 2-year-old do it and you go, hey, that's wrong.
Yeah.
I know.
And
I see it come back with my 20-year-old now, and like he's me, but I can't beat myself up too much, because I was just a fucking kid.
Yeah.
And none of us are perfect in that. We're all, as long as you're striving to be better, but they pick up so fucking much. It's like, oh no. I made those mistakes, those exact same mistakes.
Yeah, I find it a real conscious battle now, where I'll think about how I deal with certain, especially things like winning and losing, and what path am I taking in life? What do I want to do? Am I doing this because someone else told me to do it, or am I doing this because I want to do it? What kind of journey you have, and you want to lead them. I want to teach them to not give in just because everyone else says that's the way it is, or it should be done because of X, Y, and Z. You want to show them and it's hard to do at times because to take your own path is difficult, and to stand up and keep battling for something that you want when potentially everyone around you's belief is gone and stuff like that. It's a hard thing to show, but I almost feel like if I don't, then are they going to give up when things get tough? If they don't have the example to show them, or if the first obstacle that gets in their way kind of makes them go, oh no, I don't really want to do that anymore, or well, Dad decided this, so it's all right. Or
it's a tough thing though, because sometimes these decisions where I decided not to do and I remember seeing something with The Rock, and he says the best thing ever happened is that I didn't get the gig with the Dallas Cowboys, and he goes, and I was so excited, and I was, and he thought he had the gig, and he didn't get it, and it was the best thing that ever happened to him.
Took him down that other path.
So whatever the pathway you're on is the right one, as long as you're learning from it.
So it's the example that gets set, but it's the example what to do or what not to do.
Yeah.
And technically they can work either way. That's the example I follow. But it's interesting. I've bounced around lots of different sports and martial arts and things like that, and I kind of worked out that everyone has their measuring stick. Mm. So I could walk into a gym that has the power lifters down one end, and their measuring stick is what you can lift.
Yeah.
And they don't care about how they look. They're big, solid dudes. They might have a bit of a gut, but they can throw these ridiculous weights around, and that's their measuring stick. If I walk across the gym, that's where the bodybuilders train. And the bodybuilders are only they're sitting there watching and doing these different type of training because it's all about aesthetics and whether they've got a six-pack abs and big biceps. You walk across the gym a little bit further, and the CrossFitters are down there. And the CrossFitters only care about whether you're an elite athlete and you're in the regionals and things like that.
Yeah.
And they're the living gods, and they think the bodybuilders are just egotistical dickheads. And they look at the powerlifters and go, yeah, they can lift, but look at them, they're fat. They can't really go for a run. They can't do this. Yeah. Powerlifters up the other end of the gym going, look at these CrossFit wankers. They're full of shit. And then so you walk out of that, and I could walk down the road to the judo place. And you walk into the judo, and the judo guys only care about whether you've placed nationally, what sort of belt, what level you've got, and whether you can do that well. I could walk out of that one and walk into the karate place, and then they judge you on whether you've got what type of belt in karate and can you fight well and are you flexible and can you kick someone in the head, and they don't care about judo. And they don't care about whether you're good at CrossFit. Yeah. And then I could jump in the car and drive down the beach. And they go, yeah, that guy likes surfing big waves and can surf really well. They don't care about whether I do CrossFit, and they don't care whether I actually do karate. So everyone has their own measuring stick. So it just comes down to when I join somewhere, do I want to jump that measuring stick? So that then I'm higher up on their measuring stick and everyone else goes, look, he's this on blah.
Yeah.
And it depends. Do you want to play that game?
Yeah.
So if I turn up to boxing, would I last a round? That's the measuring stick in that gym, and it means nothing elsewhere. So boxing doesn't really count when it comes to jiu-jitsu, and the jiu-jitsu guys, but all fights end up on the ground. I'm pretty sure most of them start on their feet too. So there's lots of strikers that go, well, if you end up on the ground, it's because I put you there and I don't have to worry about you getting up.
Yeah.
It just depends. My measuring stick, do you want to play that game? Do you want to play that? Yeah. I want to jump on that. I'm going to try and train hard to get on their measuring stick to then walk down the road to be on that measuring stick. Make a decision which measuring stick game do you want to play, or don't play them. Don't play them at all. Yeah. And then walk in, do the training, walk out, and leave your ego out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're still learning everything from everything you want to do and what's fun and what's not fun.
Yeah.
That's where it's at, isn't
it?
Yeah.
So like surfing's all about you.
Yeah.
Doesn't really affect too many other people.
So you've always surfed?
Yeah. Since about 13.
You're a Wollongong boy?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I grew up Ocean Street, so 2 blocks from North Beach.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So my older brother surfed, and then I wanted to be like him, so... a couple of years later I started. Yeah. And, it was really handy. So surfing's it's all about you, and it's all about you having fun. And it's challenging the ocean, and the ocean doesn't care that you're having a bad day, that you're a little bit tired, that you're struggling to, get your duck dive right. It just picks you up and ragdolls you and throws you around. So and you get to see some amazing places and have some amazing experiences riding waves.
There's a humility with surfing, I think.
Oh, you get...
When I was young, and I remember sitting out in the ocean just going, we're fucking nothing compared to these. There's so much power.
Yeah, you think you got something going on? Oh, here comes the set. Yeah. Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. And you're in trouble. So, there's lots of different things and lots of different, activities. Yeah. And I find it's interesting. So... we're going to come and talk to this guy and he's a multimillionaire. So if I don't earn blah amount of money, I'm not measuring up on his measuring stick. It's like you playing that game.
But are you a dick?
A lot of them are though, eh?
Absolutely.
Are playing that game, man.
Yeah, so I don't...
the whole world's going to pay.
What car did you pull up in? Do you care?
The bartender over here. He's in the beer drinking game.
He's not even doing anything.
Yeah, you keep
We're not live. Sake. What are you doing over there?
So, that's a concept that kind of goes across all of our...
It's a great way to
entire sort of existence around what game are we playing? Whose measuring stick am I trying to measure up to? And to a certain degree, we'll always do that with our parents.
Yeah.
And especially with that father role model of going, am I measuring up? Have I made my father proud? Is that what I want to hear? Would that make a difference in my life?
I followed this. There's a Chilean director named Alejandro Jodorowsky. He's a great surrealist and I've been reading his books, and he does the tarot and all this, and he uses it as a psychology tool. It's just fucking fantastic. And he's talking about you have to kill your father. He was saying that's a man's rite of passage, not literally kill them, but that what you're just saying there is, am I measuring up to dad's standard? Dad did this and all that. Well, eventually the son has to kill the dad, as in, I'm not going to use that stick anymore. I'm my own person now, and also the mum as well. I remember almost like it was yesterday when I realised my parents were just people.
Yeah, dude.
I'm like, it's a bit disappointing. And I'm like, but that is normal fucking people.
Well, it helps you accept them.
It accepts all the things that happened.
Yeah, they make mistakes.
Yeah, they made mistakes.
They don't know everything.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre reality check.
And then that they had parents also.
Yeah.
And maybe their parents didn't know everything. And the chain goes on. It's like you start to understand people and maybe why they act.
You can.
Where their flaws are.
Do you think of free will?
Depends on how old you are,
Yeah.
how you like your parents. Like, I mean, they could beat the shit out of you when you were kids. That's illegal now, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh no, back then it was sweet. It was just common, and it happened. And I can remember as a kid, like joking with other kids about how much our parents beat the crap out of us.
Yeah.
And it was just that's just
Wasn't
the way
that
it was.
interesting? Yeah.
But like you kind of went, yeah. Oh yeah, there's who's worse than theirs. And it was just like. That was acceptable. So things change, and so someone else's parents and how they did it doesn't really count these days because we've learned so much, and now we're much more responsible for. That like cracking your kids doesn't teach them anything.
Yeah.
No, and you generally get and especially if you're angry, like no,
but anything in anger,
anything
doesn't
in
work, does it?
Yeah, that violent reaction because
not
I'm angry and I want to lash out.
Yeah.
And
that's childish within itself.
Oh,
like,
isn't it?
That's ill-disciplined.
That's the little 2-year-old coming out, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And I genuinely don't enjoy hurting people. I really don't. So therefore, people that kind of get a bit uncomfortable and go, oh, I wouldn't want to fight you. And it's like, dude, seriously? Like, if you mess with my kids, I'm sorry. Like, that's where I'm going to lose it. But apart from that, like, you can call names and carry on. It's kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah,
I don't think I've ever had the urge, really.
Yeah.
To want to fucking hurt anyone. You like maybe in a boxing ring, only to win, not to actually cause damage. But even like people say like I don't think I've ever got the real urge to bash somebody like outside of a ring. Like I don't understand it. But I think it's having control of you.
Yeah, losing your shit. I think. Yeah, it's amazing.
But you can see people that drives there every day.
Yeah.
And they run around and they're in your face and they're threatening you every day.
There's volcano in their tummy.
Come on, to like evolve, like grow up, sort it out.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that typically the better fighters don't have that, and it's the guys that think they've got something going on that are always in your face and carrying on.
Hopeless.
But the people that really know what they're doing, they just sort of sit back and go, yeah.
That's like that in any field, though, isn't it? Like the good guitarist and the really good one.
Well,
they're always the nicest people.
Keep talking.
They never talk about it.
Yeah, all good.
That's like the measuring stick thing.
Yeah.
They just haven't experienced the
they're trying to climb it,
and
they're trying to climb it artificially. They're not doing it out of integrity. They're not doing it through actual skill. They're actually trying to like jump a couple of
bully
rungs.
their way to it.
By the big ego bullshit. So
yeah. How did you get into the karate thing? So similar to surfing?
It was always something I wanted to do, and as bizarre as that sounds, a discipline. Yeah. And then I turned up one night because a guy that I used to work at Steelers, and we used to do a bit of security work, and apparently this guy said, a mate of mine knew another guy, and he goes, that guy, I've seen him fight in tournaments, like, he's pretty full on, and I said, what do you do? And he goes, Jewish and karate. And so I turned up one night and just loved it. Trained 4 days a week of just karate for years.
Yeah.
And just loved it. Just like, unlike life, karate showed you how to get to the next level. Yeah. You just need to do this, and you need to know that, and you need to learn this, and you'll go up the next grade.
Yeah, for sure.
And they also look at your maturity, which is what I obviously didn't know back then. But then when you become an instructor, you're watching the maturity more so than the technique. But then I wish life was as easy as, dude, you just need to learn to do that amount of push-ups and need to learn these patterns and like katas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you got to do 10 fights.
Yeah.
That's it. And you go, man, I wish life could be that easy.
Right. Your scorecard comes up. You won. It's sweet.
Well, I just ticked all the boxes and I moved to the next level.
Yeah.
So if I turn up and work this hard, I'll get paid that amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's not how my life has worked.
No, that's right. But also you have to set your own goal, and then if you hit that goal, you got to move it.
Yep.
Are you a goal person? Do you like setting that, or but looser than that?
No, not really. I started judo because I was doing the training with some of the guys, and I'd never done that type of. I've done a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but it was like how I'd ever thought about getting a black belt in judo, and I went, no.
Yeah.
And I didn't start it for that, and I didn't start karate for the black belt, but you kind of get there sooner or later. And then when you get it, you kind of go, this is meant to mean something, in other words, as in what you've achieved, but it's not what you think it means.
Yeah.
And then you learn, your true learning starts when you get your black belt. You don't want to hear that when you stand on white belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, the judo stuff, as long as I'm learning, as long as I'm challenging and I'm surviving the process, I'm in. And I enjoy that because it challenges you mentally, challenges you physically. And avoiding being hurt is actually a very intimidating thing. So when someone's there to hurt you, as in for the competition, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
And you control that in your head. And then when you walk off that, that's a competent fighter. Then it's easy to kind of walk around the street and go, I don't have to worry about people that aren't trained.
Yeah.
Because you've got that kind of in your back pocket. And that gets you out of so many different situations.
Yeah.
So I just kind of went, I like learning things. It's challenging. Goal-orientated, I wouldn't say that. And as far as my practice is concerned, I don't have a figure that I'm meant to earn because I had those kind of things. If I had this, if I did that, if I turned over that amount, that would be a sign. But I just kind of got to the point where it's whoever's sitting in front of me, what do they need? This is the moment that I'm concerned about. This is where I'm at, and I don't care about anything else. I'm not thinking about other stuff. So going through heavy things in my life, like divorce, the easy thing was to go to work and just concentrate on someone else.
Yeah.
And that was what actually made me really, really happy, is helping someone else, no matter what was going on in my life. And that just made such a difference. So it kind of made me understand why I do what I do and why I'm doing this as a career. And I just need to find a way that I can financially survive the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you can chop and change with overheads and how much you charge and how many clients you see. And I like to generally not get rid of people, but help them so that...
Yeah, you don't want them to stay on.
Yeah, if I do my job properly, they need me less and less in the future because there's less and less issues with you. So
It's interesting that the process always like the thing you were searching for, the thing that made you happy was the process.
Yeah.
Like it's not these goals and these measures. It always comes back to the process. Like that's what I've realised now at this later stage in my career and being involved in boxing. And it's always been about the process when I think back now. For me, it's about the process now again. Like that's refound the love of it and the commitment to it is what I get out of the process of it, just being present in it. Not so much about I've got to get here or do this or I want to win this belt. Like I'm so out of that now. Like I'm just invested in the process of doing it and being in it.
Because I was in the studio today, and I was the kids have all been sick and that so I've been in there for months, and I had just a day in there. The kids weren't, they're at school and everything, and I was in there for like 6 hours, and I didn't even get one song fucking done. I got one guitar track over the course of time, but I was happy as Larry. I'm like, fuck, I really enjoy doing this. So it's a process as well, man.
Just doing that.
Yeah. It's weird, again, like today, I think in the morning I hung some washing out or something like that, and this grace, I was happy. You know, like we've spoken about happiness before and that people want to be happy all the time, and I just think they're nuts. Like, I just don't think happiness works that way. Even if you're having the best day in the world, it doesn't mean you're going to be happy about it, but sometimes, for me anyway, sometimes happiness just kind of, it's like a grace. It happened. And I was thinking about my kids, my wife, and I'm like, fuck. This is great. It was a really nice thing, and it's I don't know.
We tend to look at things as in this is my goal and that's all I want to talk about, and it's like, but everything has two sides. Yeah, I wouldn't appreciate how I felt to be happy if I hadn't been miserable at some point in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you hadn't been really hungover, you don't know how good you feel when you're when you're not. So not the goal is to like do that, but everything has its double side. So. People can say, hey, Mark's really driven and, he tends to be able to block everything out. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? And it's like, well, it depends on which side of the coin you're looking at. Yeah. It's a good thing if you need to concentrate and be in the moment and actually be in a combative situation. Yeah. It's not a good thing if you're supposed to be sitting at home spending time with your kids. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's the same thing, but it depends. Which way do you choose to look at it? Now, what defines me as being happy depends on how you're looking at it. Yeah, and depends on which side of the coin you want to actually stare at and have a sook about or concentrate on. Being happy all the time doesn't make sense to me either. It's insane. I used to get lectured, you got to put on a happy face, and I go, but what if I'm not? Yeah, I'm happy to meet people that are, you having a bad day? Okay, cool. It happens.
Yeah.
That's right.
Don't give me the false
It
stuff.
happens
Don't
more
give me
Yeah,
some bullshit show
Yeah.
because it'll make me feel uncomfortable if you're having a bad day. It's like, no, it doesn't. I have bad days. I get it. I
Yeah.
don't have to actually become a part of that. I can be empathetic, not sympathetic.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's kind of like it's unacceptable to really show who you really are. And it's like, well, what? And then we're breeding a culture of we're lying to each other
Instagram
and ourselves.
photos.
Yeah.
Lie to ourselves every day and lie to
Yeah,
so if you learn to lie to
truth.
yourself, you can lie to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate that process. It's like I'm not always my best. That's fine. And I don't expect everyone else to be their best. But the idea is if I understand what I'm trying to achieve, then I can actually work towards that. But being in the moment, we talk about that in the moment, and what does that really mean? But it's like very few people actually do anything in the moment
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we're lost on our phones.
Yeah.
And that's not in the moment.
No,
That's total distraction.
that's right.
So do you actually? So meditation actually is supposed to get you into that moment. And how many people go, I just can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And it's go, that's a skill, right? Do you want to learn how to punch someone? That's a skill. What are you using that skill for? I like learning skills. I don't like hurting people, but I like how my body moves and how it feels and whether that's an effective thing. So when you crack the bag and it feels rock solid, you kind of go, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
And you walk out feeling better afterwards. But what were you trying to achieve? So if you're tuning into your kids, if you're tuning into someone that's trying to talk to you that's going through something and you're distracted, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's a skill that you train yourself just like everything else. And it's interesting that people have these list of excuses around why they can't do blah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, learn the skill. It's a skill.
Yeah, and you're never too fucking old. Jesus Christ, man. I'm still supposed to start trombone lessons. I've said a lot of shit. I'm going to have to watch all the...
This guy, has he done anything
I
yet?
haven't done fucking anything.
Fucking hell.
I said all by the end of the year.
This guy.
No, I haven't done anything. I said a lot of shit. So I've got a lot of... I'm trying.
I've got to get back on the bass. I've picked
Yeah.
up one riff and now I had all the moving excuses. And I said to him the other day, I was like, I need to sit down. I'm going to dedicate X amount of time a week to picking up.
We bought Mark a bass.
So, I mean, I'd love to learn the guitar. And I've always said that.
Yeah. So
And I live with guys that, like, there was 5 of us living in this crazy house, and 2 of them were learning the guitar. It was the most frustrating, annoying time to listen to these people screw up the chords.
Yeah.
And try and practice it and almost get it and then destroy it and then start again.
You're not supposed to listen to them practicing.
Oh, it's just
It's hard.
But I kind of sat there and went, I don't see that I could. I haven't found that to want and that need to sit there and actually do it for myself.
And it's
I'll just do the air guitar. It's heaps easier to learn.
Just get stoked on your mates doing it. These guys.
well, that's why it's really important for parents to actually force their kids to do a musical instrument because they. Well, I don't know if you can. Like I wanted to be Jimmy Page in that, but it's just such a good skill. And when you're young, you don't have a job generally, and you don't have these life pressures and shit. It's a difficult thing to do when you're older. It's not impossible, and of course, anyone can do it, but just to find a bloody time in your life.
Well, you don't make the time, do you? You get other shit you prioritise first. So.
But learning skills and trying to encourage your kids to skills. Oh, it's still hard. And I used to hear that with my son because he started judo just before me, and I go, yep. Oh, it's paddling out the back. Oh, it's really hard. The waves are breaking on me. Yep. Stop whinging about it. This is the way the world works. If it was easy, you wouldn't value it.
Yeah.
So when you're developing a skill and you're getting better at it, like that sharpening the saw stuff is really cool stuff. But then, so I watch my daughter do her art, and her art's amazing. So it just keeps getting better and better, and it's just so cool to watch that evolve and develop.
Yeah.
And it's like, so that kind of gives you that purpose around this is why I'm alive, this is what I'm doing with myself, if you're actually developing something. But if you're sitting there going, I turn up to work and then I go to the pub and then I...
Yeah. And no wonder there's so much depression, so much fucking Prozac and shit out there, isn't it?
But like if we go back to the diet too, like I know anytime I go from camp diet, healthy eating, training well, like my body should be broken down and busted up, and like sometimes it does feel it, but more from the combat stuff. I seem to be functioning heaps better when I'm in camp and eating, as long as I'm not at the starving phase, where I'm eating well and eating healthy, I come off and eat processed shit and just drink a few beers and like I have so much inflammation today, it's a joke. Like I can feel it, and I know it's the food doing it, but it's just my mindset. It's like it's all right. You can eat it while you can, and
yeah, self-sabotage and that self-destructive behaviour is in all of us, and we self-sabotage on a regular basis. So trying to work out a way to stop self-sabotaging is a massive benefit for us all. So why would we knowingly do all the wrong things?
Yeah. Why do
Just-
we? Why
just-
do I? Why do I eat
Just
chocolate and shit?
self-sabotage
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
And
it
that's self-worth. Everything comes back to self-worth and self-esteem. If you could sort those two out, nothing would worry you in this world.
yeah,
But we've all got these issues and we've all got this kind of shadow stuff. But a lot of people go, I'm an elite athlete, I can eat anything I want, I burn it off. And Nathan Miller's the first to jump up and down and go, that's such bullshit.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to a lot more resources to deal with those chemicals that are coming along with shit food.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have to allot those resources, how else would you spend that performance-wise? So if you bought, say, one of the last HSVs available, you'd run that on E10, right? And you see people go, not E10, no, I'd put 98 in that for sure because it's a high-powered car.
Yeah.
So a Ferrari, you could get away with shitty fuel in that. No, next level again.
Yeah.
V8 supercars, next level again. Formula One, next level again. Super clean. Why? Because it's
Fine
basically
machine, isn't it? Yeah.
ridiculously important for the performance of that machine. So the top-end performance, you need the top-end fuel. I'm an elite athlete, I don't need that.
Yeah,
And you sit there and you go, you're kidding yourself. Like, you're never going to get that anywhere near what your potential is.
yeah,
And so that's why when you're in camp and you're eating better, you're fueling that machine that your body is better. People whinge about being tired all the time. It's like, have you put decent fuel in lately?
yeah.
Oh, it's too hard.
What?
Oh, okay.
Being tired's fucking harder.
Yeah, and I find I don't talk to people a huge amount about food because I know when their gut's better, they make better food choices. As they make better food choices, that fuels their system better. They make more energy.
Yeah.
Then suddenly they feel like doing some exercise. Oh, okay, now they're exercising, now they're eating better, now they're starting to lose weight, now their system's working better. It's kind of like, oh, I think it's probably because I'm eating better. And I go, yeah, why didn't you do that before? I don't know. You get that gut, which is your second brain, to actually work better, and it starts to flow on, and that's your foundation. You get that right, life gets easy.
Yeah.
So it's...
After, quick question, like on a more of a personal level, but like when we cut weight,
Yep.
and like say the last few days when you pretty much like, I think there's different research out now, and I probably need to get in touch with the new weight cutting guys that are experts in it. But we used to do all the low residue stuff, and then basically just fucking starve if I have to, get everything out of my stomach that I can, and then try and refuel and get electrolytes and stuff back in, and then rebalance it. But like, what happens to your microbiome and your gut through that process? Do you think, like, if in terms of it would just fuck it completely?
You do kill a lot of it off.
Yeah.
So there's aerobic bacteria. So Nathan would do this quite regularly. Anytime you train for over an hour, the oxygen has been taken away from your gut, and your aerobic, so oxygen requiring bacteria, start to die. So how long are you training for? So as those bacteria die, they become quite toxic. As you train for longer than an hour, the histamine is released, your gut gets leaky, all this crap leaks into your circulation and goes straight to the muscles that are actually working the most. So runner's diarrhea is a thing. That's because your
I've
gut
had
just
that
got
a few
toxic.
times. Yeah,
So that's your toxicity of your gut actually degrading and breaking down.
I wondered why it always happened.
And then it pours into your, and that goes directly to the muscles that you're demanding to work. And then how's their recovery? Because you just poured a whole toxic shit fight all over them.
Yeah.
So you do change your microbiome. You change your microbiome just because you exercise. So for the beneficial way, if you do it for longer, so it's an evolution thing. So if you're running from something that's trying to chase you, that's an evolution thing. Who the fuck is chasing you for more than an hour? You can see that in nature that doesn't happen. The lion sneaks up, has a crack, and then chills.
Yeah.
The zebra runs and then chills. But we create stress. Dr. Robert Sapolsky wrote a few books about why zebras don't have heart attacks. because they run and then they chill out. They don't get there and go, man, that was close. Oh, it was so close. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was almost going to get us. And then, where's Dave? Where's Dave? Oh, no, not Dave. Oh, man, what are we going to do Wednesday night? And so they kind of, they drag all that on.
Humans are the only ones that do that.
We're the only ones that do that.
Dave, you motherfucker.
We relive it.
Oh, Dave. So it's interesting that when you look at animal behaviour, because we can make our physiology run for X amount of hours, like 2 days, it doesn't mean that's a good thing.
Yeah, okay.
When you can strip that amount of weight down, that doesn't mean it's a good thing.
No,
so I had issues with like bodybuilders and physique athletes that they would strip and they would screw their metabolism to strip that weight down. That is just then taught, like it's thrown your body into chaos.
Yeah.
And then it's got to try and recover from that.
Yeah.
And that's why fighting, and they're trying to encourage the UFC to fight at a more normal weight, what people walk around at, and one championship does it where they actually measure their hydration.
Yeah.
And if you're too dehydrated, they know that you've actually screwed with the system, so you're in the wrong weight class.
Mm.
But Charles Poliquin used to talk about the UFC guys, when they were allowed to do IV nutrition, like BCAAs in that post-weigh-in, there'd be a difference of 8 to 10 kilos from weigh-in to fight. 8 to 10 kilos is almost 2 weight classes. It's just ridiculous.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
We all do it.
So it is interesting who walks. If you walk around at that, you have a lot more endurance in your back pocket. If you have actually put yourself through a massive amount of duress before the fight, then you need to find a way to recover from that. So if you could minimise that, so then it's kind of
performance is going to be better.
Yeah. So then, but then in boxing, is it more about your endurance? Is it more about your technique? Is it more about the condition you're in when you walk in?
Your size.
Yeah. So it's kind of that interesting conversation, which is why these practices are still going on.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. There's no magic pill you can take to make. No.
Your physiology is not designed to do that.
No.
Yeah.
It's a defense. It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So it's a defense mechanism where it actually would kick it in so you survive. But your life's on the line. So this is the price you'll pay to survive.
Yeah.
Do you really want to be paying that price on a regular basis when your life really isn't on the line like that? And you kind of sit back and you go, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? So, certain industries have screwed women's metabolism big time by doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, I knew a few female athletes where they're like, their cycles stop. And
they're not designed to do that. No. We're the guys that used to leave the cave and chase food down. Yeah. They did not. So it's not a sexist thing. It's just...
It's biology.
It's biology of estrogen and testosterone. Yeah. So they're not meant to do that. That's why they carry more body fat. They're designed to actually be able to carry a child the full term. So there's different physiological requirements. They're making 9-month plans. So, stress and pregnancy is a big thing because if you're stressed, you're technically telling your body it's not safe.
Yeah.
It's not safe, and they're making a 9-month plan.
Yeah.
For us, our role in pregnancy is pretty short sometimes for some people. So, they only have to turn up.
Yeah.
Well,
we don't want to get into that. So it's completely different. 9 months or however long we want to talk about. So it is interesting, but then we're seeing more chemicals in the environment and more stress in our environment, and it's messing with our fertility, and our fertility rates are going out the door backwards.
Yeah.
And they're still not looking at trying to make us healthier. They're actually pushing our system with drugs.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm kind of trying to help my clients get healthier, and instead of doing 4 rounds of IVF, they're actually falling naturally. Yeah. And then they're falling again naturally without even trying.
Isn't that interesting when a couple can't have a baby, and let's say they adopt or something like that, and then suddenly the stress is off,
is gone,
and boom, they have a kid. Fucking heaps of stories like
There's
that.
so much stuff that makes so much sense, though.
It's a defense mechanism from that evolution. Yep.
And
and also, women typically go into labour at about 3 a.m, during the night.
Yeah.
Because if you went into labour during the day and you were out in the field, you are extremely vulnerable. Yeah. So nature dictated start the labour during the night, where you would typically be in the cave or very hard to see.
Safe and rested.
Yeah, so it's just fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought of heaps of new questions, but we're getting on. Anyway, but one quick thing. I've been following a lot of... I wanted to get onto your microcurrent work.
Yep.
I'm right into the electric universe, basically.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
And it's just fascinating, and it seems to be tying in a lot with this new discoveries about water, the fourth phase of water, and how water actually works inside the cell.
Yep.
And it's not like normal H2O; it's a different type of water, and it's actually what is it? I think it's it's a negative electron, and it actually sucks the blood into it. If you're on the internet, we could check it in. Anyway, but with the there's a guy, Victor Schauberger, who's around in the 1930s, I think, is a German. What was he? He was a forester, and he wrote all these papers on how rivers work, and how they meander through, like let's say, for example, if you get a drop of water and you put it on a pane of glass, it doesn't go straight down the pane of glass. It always goes like this. And then the top bit of the water, or the bit that's touching the glass, goes slower and it moves like that. And that's the way rivers go, and that's why rivers always go like this. And he started talking about the human body. And one of the things he invented, as well, I'm getting to my point, was a pipe system for water that was 100% efficient. And what happens with this twisted pipes, and you shoot the water through it, and it actually starts running around the edge of the pipe with a hollow thing through the middle. And there's no resistance. Like you get, it's perfect timing, and it's incredible. And then I was watching this other geezer the other day talking about the human heart and our vein system, our artery system. And he's saying, when the human heart, when it pumps, it doesn't just go pump and splurt, pump, splurt. It actually, the muscles, there's like 12 or 13 muscles in there, they're timed to go like this. So it actually twists the blood around it. And our arteries are kind of like that as well. So it's a perfect kind of system for getting blood around. That was more of a statement than anything, but I wanted to get on to about the role, like your microcurrents and the role of electricity in the body. And Jenna, how did you get into the microcurrents thing, and what is it?
Okay, so microcurrent is a technology where it uses millions of an amp. So that's what microcurrent means, millions of an amp. Yeah. Our body uses millions of an amp to conduct nerve impulses, but also piezoelectricity, so pressure across ligaments, tendons, bones, produces a microcurrent. So microcurrent is a language the body uses.
Yep.
And then they worked out that there were different electrical frequencies that, as in measured in hertz, that the body sat at. So your liver's 35 hertz, your heart's 33 hertz, your nervous system's 396 hertz, and your spinal cord's 10 hertz. So they could basically dial up a certain tissue using this technology, and then run, more often than not, destructive interference. So it's very much a physics term. It's used for medicine, but it's a physics-based process.
Yeah.
Runs destructive interference and sometimes constructive, so the same wave. And the same wave will then double up, or the opposite wave cancels each other out.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of research done about this. And the technology, in my opinion, is probably the limiting factor. But at the moment, there's a Healy, which is a little square device that's multiple market comes out of Singapore, but it's actually German-based.
Yeah.
And it's got lots of different things. We've developed it. We've been doing it for like about 20 years. It's a language the body uses. And as long as you know frequencies, you can either reset physiological processes or support or cancel out things that you don't want there. So you can't make, Supermat, but you can actually reset you closer to the original blueprint you were designed to be. Now you think about all the things we've put in our way through trauma and toxins and different things like that. To reset any of that has been quite fascinating. So doing disc injuries, nerve injuries, so nerve pain, facet injuries, spinal cord stuff.
Yeah, I've seen an American doctor using it on a burn victim on the hand, was just totaled. And he said it's about the energy in the system. And he said, and the skin needs to heal at this type of voltage, and they're not getting the voltage into that hand.
Exactly. So every injury, they can measure it. When you injure something, the voltage changes. Yeah. If they can run the healed voltage, it can bring it back.
Oh, yeah. The result was unbelievable. Yep. Like this mutated hand was perfect at the end of it, So electric universe again. It is just like there's the Body Electric by Bob Becker that did a lot of research. It was only in the 1950s we actually sort of settled on the fact that nerves do actually conduct an electrical impulse. Yeah, it's not that long ago. No. So it's fascinating how the body uses this type of technology, and the
the biggest issue is probably either the frequencies, knowing the frequencies, but also the technology to apply that. Every time we've tried to take a step in the right direction with, say, Apple or someone like that, anyone that catches on what it can really do will basically try and steal it.
Yeah.
So it's trying to find someone that has enough behind them that can actually make it come to fruition without actually shutting it down.
So you're actually involved in making the machines and that? Are you like...
Not personally, but we've spoken to different companies and things like that over the time. So whether it's US, whether it's Chinese based, whether it, eventually, whether it's Germans or whether Germans have a different entry because they don't care about patents, so it's a bit easier to do with them.
Yeah,
it's the technology is really the limiting factor. But it's what it can do sounds outrageous, so I don't talk about it much at all because people just go, yeah, bullshit. And then people come in and go, oh my God, I can't believe that. Yeah. So results do the talking as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. But we've done that many different things that were kind of technically impossible. I'm passionate about it because it changed so many things for me. And when I had spinal surgery, so I had a disc replaced in my back, I was in a lot of trouble before that. So the disc collapsed and I had a chunk of my disc sitting on the nerve root. Oh, and the nerve root started dying, and it dies from the furthest distance and comes back. Yeah. So that was great fun. So trying to save that. And when I went to the specialist, he got me to do these exercises to see how bad. So he could see the MRI, he could see the nerve conduction test results, and he went, so I know you shouldn't be able to do that. So this is what he does for a living, an orthopedic spinal specialist. And he goes, so you shouldn't be able to do that. And he goes, but I know you're using the microcurrent. And he goes, okay. So I was kind of beyond the norm. Yeah. Yeah. And I had surgery to replace the disc on a Wednesday afternoon. I was up Friday morning, discharged Saturday morning. Back at work 2.5 weeks later and back digging trenches 3.5 weeks later because our property got flooded. Yeah.
Fucking hell. So you were using that on yourself?
Yep.
Yep.
And it was actually a friend of mine that was the assistant surgeon that gave me his unit when I was actually in the hospital to help with healing and wound stuff. Wow. So the nurses would come in and go, hang on, what's all this stuff? That's not, you're not supposed to. And I said, yeah, it's blah, 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 doctor's stuff. And he went, well, okay, we're back. And we just backed off. So, yeah, I've taught it in a couple of different places in the States, as well as run my own courses in Australia. But it really comes down to technology and making it user-friendly.
Yeah, well, getting that current to the right spot.
So is it something that's practiced or no? It is generally practiced.
There's not that many people that are... Okay. There are some people that are doing a generic version, and I don't like the generic version because I've seen how we can kind of do a more unique version. Mm-hmm. But it is practiced around the world, but it's spoken of in different terms so that people kind of hide the concept. Yeah. It's fascinating. Like so this client of mine that's doing the... what is it called? Quantum biology. Yeah. He gets it. And he can explain it to me, as in the physics side of it, and I just kind of, like, my head starts to spin. So he can do that, so I can go, okay, so I know that that's the backing of it. Yep. Or I see how it works, which is fine, and I can make it work, but then having all that physics and science background is super cool.
Yeah. That's how you're going to get people behind it, I suppose, as well. They want to see the paperwork.
Yeah. And there's so much out there, but it just comes down to who wants to control it. Mm. That's the biggest issue. Yeah. And that's what kind of sucks the most. But
wow,
work in progress.
Sounds great. I think I'm coming to see you tomorrow.
Yeah,
it'll be great. Going to check my blood. I like that.
You don't want to share with the listeners what's...
Well, what Garry does, he spoke about it a little bit before, he does live blood work. And it was the first time when I went to Garry that a doctor, I've been to GPs and that plenty of times, and no one had ever... They just give you a little script and you fuck off somewhere and you give it to someone and they give you some results back. But Garry actually takes your blood from your finger and puts it on a microscope, and you can actually see it in front of you. You can see all your millions of little cells, It's weird. It's funny because, if you've never been to a naturopath or something, you hear all this stuff, witchery or whatever about a lot of this, but then you go to them, you realise they act more like doctors than doctors do. Yeah. Isn't that what fucking doctors are supposed to do? Like, look at your blood and shit like that and say, hey, something's a bit funny here. And how do they even... how do doctors work without doing that? This seems such an obvious thing, isn't it? Like when I saw you doing that and my cells were all kind of weird shaped, and even I could tell that didn't look good. They're all clumped together and they're all fluffy, and I'm like, fuck, is that, how am I alive with that type of shit going on?
But then, like the next visit, and you see such an improvement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can see it. Like you don't need a degree in haematology to actually read that. You can see that would look horrible. That looks heaps better.
Yeah.
And you kind of sit there going, okay, yeah. And then you can see your immune system change. You can see like
surely doctors would get a lot out of that if they had that in their surgery, wouldn't they?
You'd think patients would be more inclined to change too when you can actually
see it then and there.
Feel it, and
Depends on. See, I'm prescribing things that are generally trying to make people healthier, so I love to track that improvement in their health.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's and Metagenics that used to do the teaching of this actually did a presentation to the TGA.
Yeah.
And they went, yep, we can see it's a pathology grade tool. We really only think doctors should be doing this.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm not allowed to advertise it.
Oh, okay.
So that's why you don't see, like, there'll be nothing on my website, there'll be nothing on social media.
Yeah.
I think
that's
I can
crazy.
Show
so
yeah,
they didn't want you doing it.
It's just on Smack Panda.
It's one of those things that you kind of sit there and go, well, I'm not allowed to promote that I have a pathology grade thing. So as long as us naturopaths that are weirdos, right? So we, you know, have the bone through our nose and light incense and you know, and throw the bones. Yeah. You know, and we're the witch doctors, and we do blah 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 seance. As long as they can keep us in that realm, that's good for their business. But as soon as we start getting more professional and more science based, they kind of start going, well,
because it doesn't seem any reason at all for them not to let you guys use it.
Yeah, they're like almost conspiracy theories.
Almost, isn't it?
They've put them in one of those labels.
Well, there's a lot of money in it. Like you were saying before, there's billions and billions of dollars in this. And
well, they got rid of naturopaths off the health funds to drive people back to the GPs.
Oh, really?
There was no other reason. They said, "Oh, there's no science around naturopathy," and I go, "Well, that's an umbrella heading."
Yeah.
If you want to talk about a specific process, then there's heaps of research. But we just call ourselves naturopaths because we do herbs and nutrition and diet and massage and this and that and that. So it's a broad heading. Well, there's no science about your broad heading. Well, of course there's not.
Yeah.
Because there's too many facets to that.
Yeah.
So they've like kind of gone, no, we're calling that there's no science behind that. And it's like, it's just it's a weak play on words in my opinion. Yeah. But then clients still come in. Do you get any refunds? No refunds. No, from health fund. Why am I paying it for? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not for me to answer.
No, it's ridiculous. We're forced to take health insurance because I'd rather actually pay into Medicare. I believe in Medicare more than health insurance, but the amount we'd actually pay more. And so we get a tax bill and X amount is for Medicare. But if we don't have a health insurance, we have to pay a shitload more for Medicare than we should.
Okay.
So it's really weird. They're basically the health insurance it's taxpayer funded because they force you to buy it. It's not needed in Australia. We have Medicare. We should all put more money into Medicare, and maybe we can do research into naturopathy and things like that. We can actually expand things than just giving some overseas.
But there's no money to be made in what we do because we're helping people. In my opinion, I see people getting healthier, taking less medication. That is not going to pan out well.
The cycle of
not at all. So it's not like people like that. I don't believe that the GPs are generally wanting people to be sicker. But they are stuck with a set of tools and they're not allowed to actually sell nutritional stuff.
No, they're not.
And it's kind of like, so they have their hands tied. So these are your tools. This is what you have to use.
And especially if they're in Medicare, if someone comes in with these symptoms, there's a prescription on what they have to give them. Even if they think, oh, I shouldn't really give this person that, it doesn't matter. You know, they can get pulled over the coals saying, why did you give them this and not that? You know, it's almost like teaching that there's a curriculum and that's it. You just got to teach this shit.
You do it our way.
Yeah, you do it our way.
Yep.
And take the skill out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Gary, I think on that note.
That was great, man.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks for coming in.
Educational in a lot of ways.
You educated there?
No. I see.
Actually, that's all I was thinking. I want to come in and because I've been talking about it for a year with my chiro actually, who he's into all different alternative stuff, and yeah, he's
Actually, if people do want to come see you, where are they going to find you?
Okay, I'm just trying to think of. So my Facebook got hacked, Instagram got hacked, Uber Eats.
It was
credit card,
it was the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
Those bastards.
Deliveroo.
Well, okay, so my phone number is 42262550. That gets you to me. I'm on Facebook.
We'll put some links in. We'll grab some off you.
Yeah.
You sure you want Crazy Smack Pandas calling you up? That'll be all right. Be nice.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's only 100 of them regularly.
There's more now.
Yeah, buddy. Episode 30. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Gary. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.